So how important is metadata for your sync licensing career? It's a great question, actually. Metadata is very, very important. In fact, it's one of the most crucial parts of your career if you actually want to get placements, which I know you probably do. So you should watch this video to understand the importance of metadata, what role it plays in the sync licensing business, but also why it's not the entire picture. Okay, I think some producers, especially ones that I've been interacting with lately, think that it's all about metadata, that literally your career is based on how well your tracks are organized and categorized through the metadata that's supplied to music libraries, or that the libraries themselves create for your tracks. Okay, so I want to dispel some myths, kind of give my take on the subject and why it's very important, but it's not the entire picture. Okay, first of all, what is metadata? Most of you probably know what metadata is. It's basically adding any type of information and tagging it along with an asset. Okay, but in this business, we're talking about audio files. Usually it's going to be AIFs or WAV files. So basically what we're doing with metadata is we are putting applicable and useful information and tagging that along with our tracks that we submit to libraries. So what kind of information could this include? Well, obviously it could have your name as the writer. It could have the publisher's name or the publisher's company. It could have your IPI CAE number. That's basically it's not really your social security number, but it's basically the number that allows you and the PROs to track your placements to get you paid. So it's a very important number that you should have, and you should get one. If you're not a member of PRO, you need to get one right away. You could put the genre, right? The sound, the style, that kind of thing. Moods, the emotions, maybe some artist that it sounds like, the era that it came from. Maybe it's a 70s funk track. You could put what types of scenes it would be appropriate for. So there could be certain kinds of emotional scenes or programs, TV programs, commercials, trailers, that kind of thing. What else could you put? You could put, if there's co-writers, obviously, we talked about you being a writer, but if there's multiple writers, they need to know that, how many different writers are involved in this, right? So you name it. There is a whole host of issues or data points that you can include along with a track. Now, why do you need to include all that information? Well, for many different reasons. Okay, number one, the biggest reason is when a library takes your track into their catalog and then they allow one of their clients, let's say they have a reality TV show producing company that signs on with the library, wants to use a lot of their music, right, for their TV shows that they're producing. Well, the library is going to give them access to essentially an online database to search through it. This used to be actually sent through external hard drives, or even sometimes even in DVD format, but just massive libraries where it had to be shipped through the mail to these companies. But these days with the internet and with all the resources available to libraries, they literally can just send them a link to access their catalog and download what they need to when they need it, right? So in that search engine, basically, everything is tagged with metadata. So if there is a reality show producer and they need some comedic hip hop tracks to fit behind a particular scene, they can type in something like that. Comedy, dramedy, hip hop, funny, right? Those kind of scenes. Or humor, goofy, or maybe they need it to sound kind of like a throwback 90s hip hop sound, so they type in 90s, right? So there's a lot of search terms that basically can be tagged along with any track so that those clients can find the tracks that they're looking for. That's why it's so crucial. One big mistake that a lot of producers make is they try to put too much into their metadata, so they want to have every applicable term that could possibly be interpreted to be useful for their track, right? Because they want every search to basically find their track. So I understand the temptation to want to do that, but you have to understand that your track should not be all things to all people, and you should not be marketing it that way, okay? If you have a dramedy track, right, which is basically comedy and drama fused into one, usually this is in the hip hop genre, then that is where your lane needs to be. Those are the kind of terms that you need to focus in on. You shouldn't be trying to get into, well, I also think I could get some, orchestral trailer placements because this also has some tension in it, right? So you need to make sure that you're not trying to be all things to all people and all different opportunities. In fact, the more you do that, the less people are going to actually want to use your music or even be able to find it, because it's so watered down and it's so not applicable to anything that you're putting in the metadata that doesn't really do you any favor. It's actually much better to get into the niche, right? To really zero in on the exact type of sound and artist and genre and maybe scene that your track would be appropriate for. And by the way, I do have a training tutorial in Sync Academy. Actually, I have an entire video dedicated to just metadata, and I give you guys an actual template with that. So if you're in Sync Academy, make sure you do check out that tutorial. So if you want to learn more about those different pieces of information that you could include and how to basically start getting used to doing that. It is something that if a library allows you to do that, not all libraries will. Some libraries do want to do that themselves. And you can try to ask them that maybe you can contribute to it. But if they say no, you just got to play by their rules, because they probably have their own system of how they want to categorize their catalog. But if they do ask for you to supply your own metadata, it's definitely something to be aware of. With all of that said, though, I want to dispel the other myth, which is that, well, if you don't have metadata, or metadata is basically everything. Like if you just get good metadata, you'll get the placements. No, it's not the whole picture. In fact, it's one of the last things that you probably need to have ready to go. Again, it's an important piece, but it's not the first thing that you should probably be worrying about. Before any of that metadata, before anybody's going to ever search for your music in a music library, what has to happen first? You have to get accepted by a music library, right? In order to get accepted by a music library, what do you have to do? You have to create the right kinds of music, okay? And I do believe you need to zero in probably on one, maybe two genres that you're really good at, that you love, that you feel very passionate about, okay? In the beginning process of this industry, I do not recommend, and I don't think it's a wise thing, to dabble in 5, 6, 7, 8 different genres just because you feel like it. Well, I feel like doing this. When you get further into the business, you can start to have a little bit more freedom. I certainly have. I've bounced around with many different genres. But when I got started, I had one sound. It was rock. And I did different variations of it. Sometimes it was hip hop rock. Sometimes it was electro rock, metal rock, all different types of rock. But rock was my thing. And that's who I was. That's how I got my foot in the business. That's how I branded myself to a lot of the libraries that I worked with, and how I really started building up my catalog and my royalties in the beginning. As the years went on, I started branching out, and you will too. I guarantee you will. But in the beginning, you don't have that luxury. Don't do that. It's going to basically get in the way of you making a lot of progress, because you're going to water down, again, just like the metadata thing, where you try to have all this stuff because you want to be all things to all people. Same thing if you're trying to do all genres at the same time. They're not all going to be great. Let's just be real, okay? You're going to probably have one sound that you're really good at. Stick with that and really sort of zero in on that and produce a full album, and then submit it to a library that you feel your music would basically serve them. And that is what I say is the first step in all of this, okay? Metadata is definitely important. But if you're only thinking about metadata and then you're not really spending time making sure that your tracks are up to par or providing the clear emotion, and they're licensable and they're structured right, and they're creating that forward momentum and that interest, and you're not just copying and pasting your way or using kind of dated and sort of loopy sounding samples, that kind of thing. If you're not doing these, if you're not sort of going to the basics of making sure that you're creating a great product, you could have the best metadata in the world, but if your music is just not clear, conveying a clear emotion, it's not useful for the library you're submitting to, it's not serving the needs of their clients, who cares? Because yes, they'll find your music every time they search for it with the metadata, but then they'll hit play on your track and go, I'm not feeling it, right? The emotion or the quality of the track is not going to be on par with what they're expecting. So you'll just keep getting passed up. So that's why I say it's crucial metadata, but it's not everything. And so don't overthink it. Don't put too much importance on it, because if you're not in a lot of libraries yet, that's something that will take care of itself once you get accepted by a library, right? That's one of those things that, yes, you need to learn how to do that kind of thing. But a lot of times libraries will do that themselves. And obviously you can ask them to contribute and help out with that if they're allowing you to do that. But before that process happens, you've got to really go to the basics on this kind of stuff and really focus on where you really are. So it's a big part of what I'm saying here is just know where you are, okay? If you're not in a library yet and you haven't been accepted yet, why is metadata the first thing you're worrying about, okay? Nobody's searching for your music with your metadata now, right? So it's something that you will need to get involved with. But before you get into that situation, get that first album that's licensable, that's quality, that's focused in one sound, one genre, one emotional sort of palette, right? And then partner with a really great library and make sure you're serving their needs. Give them a custom pitch. Don't spam a bunch of different companies. Give them a personalized pitch. Go back to those basics first. Then you can move on to the metadata question. So anyways, guys, I hope you found this useful. If you did, leave a like. Make sure you do subscribe. I put out videos like this on a weekly basis. As always, please share this video with a producer or a musician friend that you feel would be benefited by learning about the sync licensing business. It's actually, believe it or not, still one of the best kept secrets in the music business. I actually still meet musicians and producers very regularly, and I'm always surprised that they don't know that this is available to them. They really still believe, and they believe in that myth that you have to be some A-list record label artist to get these kind of opportunities. It's not true. I think most of you guys probably that have been following me for a while know that that's not true. But believe it or not, a lot of people are still struggling out there, spinning their wheels, just hoping and praying that somebody comes and discovers them. You guys know that this is a much more realistic way to achieve success and full-time income with your music.